Let's talk about the main event now. And I want to put it to you, did Conor McGregor's camp get the game plan wrong in this fight?
I'm not sure they got the game plan wrong. Maybe it was more of an implementation from Conor that was wrong. You know, I was very surprised when he came out and he threw a knee, I think it was, and a kick very early on. Like, you don't do that against a guy like Khabib. And, you know, it was very surprising in that first round to see that. And even more surprising probably in the second when he threw a front kick right at the start as well. You know, and then he just got butchered for the rest of the round. His stand-up looked sloppy. His cardio didn't look great, to be honest. I don't think Khabib's did either, you know, if I'm 100% honest about it. But I think, you know, looking back, and hindsight's a wonderful thing. I think maybe, you know, if we had to do this all over again, Conor might have opted for a different fight, maybe to come back and get the juices flowing a little bit before that. I just thought it was an incredibly sloppy performance from Mr. McGregor, and I was disappointed. And obviously Khabib looked really, really good, took full advantage. Possibly the fight could have been stopped in the second round, you know, and Conor was on the end of a barrage of shots from Khabib. But yeah, really disappointing. Striking looked off point, cardio looked off point. Very good job, in fairness, on the ground. I know, as I said, it could have been stopped, but he did defend it very, very well on numerous occasions. But I think the cardio sort of just ran out in that fourth round, and maybe he just didn't want to be in there. Maybe he didn't want to, you know, face another round of that. And when Khabib obviously had this sort of the face crank on, maybe Conor felt, you know, another 2 minutes on the clock, he's going to sink it in underneath my neck. Why do myself further damage? And I think, you know, in my opinion, the UFC are, because of the way the sport is at the moment, you know, that is the money fight again going forward, is a rematch after what happens, the unsavoury incidents. And it's very unfortunate for guys like Tony Ferguson, as I said there, but it's going to be interesting to see what the UFC do here, and to see if the Nevada State Athletic Commission issue a suspension, which I think they have to. You know, I think there's something that we lack in mixed martial arts, and especially in relation to the UFC, is the lack of consistency. And that's a real issue for me, and I think it's something going forward that they are going to have to really address, because it's all over the place. You know, there shouldn't be one rule for one fighter and then a different rule for other fighters. It's very, very worrying. So yeah, I think the UFC need to step up. The Nevada State Athletics Commission need to step up and really come down strong on Khabib here.
We'll get to that in a second. I want to go back to the fight again. Khabib didn't seem worried about Conor's stand-up at all. He took any shots that were given, and if anything, Khabib landed the biggest shot of the night with the overhand right, which sent McGregor spiralling back. That was the biggest shock for me.
I think, again, Conor's defence was sloppy. Maybe he was saying the cardio as well. His hands were dropped a lot lower than we've seen. There was no real oomph in his combinations that he was trying to put together as well. I just think it was, and I'm not trying to make excuses for Conor, but I think it was, you know, ring rust is a real thing. And I've always said this, and there was always a slight worry coming into the fight, was the ring rust element. And, you know, obviously very different from boxing. Maybe he just didn't mesh everything together, and maybe did need a, you know, sort of a tune-up fight before he came back for a world title shot. And that seemed to be very much the case. It was just sloppy. It was lethargic. There was no real thought behind it, and I think that's a major concern, because Conor obviously is very cerebral when it comes to his striking. You know, there's a lot of sloppy shots thrown there, and his defence was very poor as well. And I think, you know, kudos for Khabib for catching him, but, you know, at the end of the day, if that's, you know, if Conor is on full tune, on full flow, he's not gonna stand like that. And it was just very poor, very sloppy from Conor.
I mean, obviously he called for an immediate rematch like he did against in the Diaz fight. But the thing about the Diaz fight in the first one, like, he dominated the first round, was quite clearly the better MMA fighter, and it was just a case of his gas tank went. And he said afterwards, I need to make the adjustment. He did. He had a game plan in the second one. In this fight, you know, he didn't, you know, he won the third round just about, but there's nothing from that fight that tells me that he can go and beat Khabib in the rematch.
Yeah, no, there's, you know, for me, I don't want to see a rematch. Definitely not straight off the bat. You know, whether the UFC want to do it or not, it's a different thing. You know, they obviously love the money, love the big paychecks and the big advertising, sponsorship, everything that comes with that big fight. But I think there's other fights that Conor needs to maybe look at before even considering a Khabib fight. You've the winner of Poirier Diaz as well. You know, there's lots of options there with that. I would personally like to see him, you know, maybe do Diaz 3 before potentially looking at a Khabib fight, or Tony Ferguson. But the worry for me about Tony Ferguson is that Tony would beat him in terms of Conor's reputation and what he wants to do to get back to that lightweight title situation. I thought Tony looked phenomenal. There's other scraps. You've potentially Justin Gaethje. I don't really like a lot of those fights for Conor after the performance on Saturday night, to be honest with you. But I think there's a lot of work to be done, and it's going to be very interesting to see what he does. So, it's all sort of in the air at the moment. I think we need another week to, maybe let things calm down. But, a rematch for me at the moment, I think we're looking at the same outcome as we saw on Saturday. Because I think there's a lot more work for Conor McGregor to go in there and do in the gym. But, saying that as well, it could be a massive eye-opener for Conor. Maybe it's the thing he needed. Maybe he needed that sense of taste of defeat again, and to really focus him and reinvigorate him, into the realms of this new 6-fight deal. So, fascinating times again in the lightweight division. I think there's so many fights we can make. So, I just think it will be a period of reflection for Team McGregor at the moment.